All right. I think that we can probably get started right now. So can everybody see my screen and hear me okay today, right now? Very good. Thank you, Clark.
We gotcha.
Okay, cool. All right. So everybody, I want to welcome you to the Wildfire Safety, Preparedness, and Firewise Landscaping Design webinar. This is a joint collaboration between Las Virgenes Municipal Water District, the California State Assembly, the LA County Fire Department, and the Resource Conservation District of the Santa Monica Mountains. We appreciate everybody spending their evening with us, or at least a portion of it, as this is an important topic as we move into whatever the traditional fire season now is in California. We want to give you some updates and some information that would help you make sure that your home is safe from any advancement if there would be a wildfire, and we hope, of course, that there's not. I'd like to just give a couple of quick shout outs. I want to highlight our panelists that are in attendance with us today. We have Assemblymember Jacqui Irwin, who represents the 42nd Assembly District. She is well known and well liked, and we appreciate you in bringing your expertise to us today to share with the community. We also have the Assistant Chief Drew Smith with the LA County Fire Department, and we'll provide lots of really good information to share with you on how to keep your home safe from wildfires. We also have Clark Stevens, who is the CEO for the Resource Conservation District of the Santa Monica Mountains, who also will share some very important information for any homeowner or business owner out there when it comes to wildfire safety. And last but not least, I want to make sure that I give a shout out to Senator Henry Stern, representing the 27th Senate District, who was instrumental in assisting and organizing and helping put this webinar together for the community. He didn't want me to say this, but I must say thank you also to Jeremy Wolf, the director of Henry Stern's or Senator Stern's office, on his assistance in putting this together as well. So thank you to all of you, and thank you for being here and sharing your expertise with the community. This is being recorded. This webinar is being recorded and will be offered to everybody within a day or two on the Las Virgenes website. And I would presume that we would also share this with the other participants, meaning the panelists, and they will also be able to share this on their corresponding websites as well. We want to make sure that this information is widely distributed. A couple of other quick things. There will be opportunities for Q&As at the end. If you'll see on your screen, there is an option for you to utilize the Q&A component to the Zoom. If you want to go ahead and put in your question there, I will either find that and ask the question to our panelists, but there will also be an opportunity for you in the community to ask questions. You simply need to raise your hand at the end of our presentation, and I will call on you, and then I will promote you to be able to speak, and then you can ask your question to the panelists who you choose to ask the question to. So I wanted to kind of go over a couple of quick things with you before as we get started here, and there's probably going to be some things that we go through that I want to also highlight that are going to be important to you as we move through this. But first, I want to give you a quick update before we start getting into the specific fire information. I want to give you all a quick update on the drought as where we stand right now. So I'm going to go ahead and start our slideshow. This is something from the U.S. Drought Monitor. This is a map. They do this weekly. This one was from August 30th, which was slightly more than just about a week ago tomorrow. And the reason why this is important is you can see from the chart to the right there, the drought has been pretty persistent. It hasn't really fluctuated much. It can kind of go up or down, but basically this has been the same look as it's been for a number of months now. Sometimes it gets a little worse, sometimes it gets a little bit better, but it pretty much has remained the same as we have moved through the summer and now moving into the fall. So the entire state of California is in a significant drought. The darker the color, the worse it is. And you can see just there kind of LA and just barely touching the LA County and the Ventura County locations are not in the worst, but they're not certainly in the best. So this is kind of gives you a visual imprint of what it is that we're facing. I always like to highlight this too. This is from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. This is long range forecasts moving forward, at least until the end of this year right now, from now, or close to it is now until the end of the year. This is our precipitation outlook. And basically, if everybody looks over at the state of California on this, where their V is, where it meets Nevada right there, that's where basically, in essence, that's where we get our water from. So the northern Sierra Nevada mountains. So you can see that there is a higher than likely probability that moving through the fall into the winter, that we're not going to have a good opportunity for precipitation in the form of snow and or rain. So that's something I want you to keep in mind as we move forward here. This is also the seasonal temperature outlook. And as you can see, that it looks like that for the entire state of California, we have above average opportunities to have above average temperatures. The combination of not having regular or decreased precipitation and above average temperatures is not a good recipe for us as we stand right now when it comes to the drought. Let me go into a couple of other quick things. This is not looking like it's going to go away anytime soon. There's something called La Nina. La Nina is an event that happens in the Pacific Ocean that influences weather patterns throughout the entire country. And for California, it means above average temperatures and below normal precipitation. If you remember last year, we had a couple of pretty significant rain events in October and in December. Both of them were very helpful, but it didn't really materialize into assisting and alleviating the drought conditions that we were experiencing for a number of years. So where we're at right now is, and this is a little bit more specific to Las Virgenes area rather than the region, but it's also worth noting. The district has been incredibly proactive, knowing that this drought looks to be prolonged, knowing that this is a major concern to our customers, and knowing that we're moving into fire season. We've been doing everything that we can to ensure that we have enough water, obviously for the drought and for indoor water usage, but also because we wanted to make sure that if there happened to be a wildfire, that there would be adequate water supplies for us to combat the fire very, very locally. We petitioned and asked the state of California to have additional water allocations provided to the district, specifically because we have been designated, and I'm sure somebody will talk about this, one of the panels will talk about this in more detail than myself, that our area has been designated a high fire risk zone. And because of that, we asked the state for additional water supply to make sure that we had enough to combat if there would happen to be a wildfire. Basically, there's just not enough water, in essence, is what the state came back and told us. So what they suggested us to do is do exactly what we're doing right now, is to do a full-throated educational opportunity for the communities in our impacted zone to figure out how to create defensible areas where water is not a component to making sure that your home or business is as safe as it can be for the advancement of a wildfire. That's why we're doing this right now. But in addition to that, I want to also make sure that everybody understands that the district is proactively and actively every day trying to find additional water resources to make sure that we have enough water in the reservoir. Las Virgenes Reservoir is located in Westlake Village, and as it stands right now, it's at 70% capacity. The reason why this is important is because we do not have enough water from the State Water Project, which is our sole source of water, to satisfy the needs of all of our customers. It's enough water for indoor water usage for cooking, cleaning, and bathing, but it's not enough to satisfy the needs of our outdoor living spaces. In order to compensate for that lack of water from the State Water Project, Las Virgenes has been drawing down water from the reservoir to make sure that there's enough water for some outdoor irrigation and to make sure that the trees, more than anything, are going to be able to survive this drought. That's what we're most concerned about, and that's why we're drawing down the reservoir. So as it stands right now, that's kind of just a very, very quick overview of the status of the drought, what's happening right now. And as we go forward, I will say this is the last thing I'll say, and then we'll move on to immediately go into our panel presentation. And there might be some other things I'll toss in here that are important for everybody to know. As it stands right now, collectively, the State Water Project dependent water agencies, so it's us, LADWP, Callegas, and some others that are generally in Southern California that are heavily or more dependent on water that comes from the Sierra Nevada snowmelt. Metropolitan Water District had imposed a specific conservation mandate or requirement on our agencies. We as Las Virgenes adopted a 1 day a week watering restriction or requirement. Other agencies had done some other things. When you look at what was best for our customers, this was what was best for our customers. But here's the point. Collectively, these agencies are in line or on target to meet these requirements by Metropolitan. And this is important because what this is going to do is provide us to maintain the current water conservation requirements for all of these agencies moving into December. Once December moves, Metropolitan will do a further assessment of where we're at with water supply, what the projections are for moving forward into the winter months when we're hopefully going to get precipitation, and make a decision at that time of whether we can increase, stay the same, or decrease our outdoor water usage. That's going to be the trigger for us moving forward in our region, is around December 1st or in that time. With that, that is just a quick update on the drought. And I do want to move forward now with introducing our Assemblymember Jacqui Irwin. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can see her as she speaks. And I want to turn this over to you, Assemblymember. Welcome, and thank you for spending your time with us. So please, go ahead.
Thank you so much for having me. And I can assure everybody I am not driving right now. I was just on a panel in Monterey that went a little long. And so I pulled over to the side and I'm sitting right next to the ocean where it's only 76 degrees. So pretty nice. So I currently represent it's the 44th district, Oxnard, Hueneme, Camarillo, Moore Park, Thousand Oaks, and a lot of the Conejo Valley. And I do hope that next year I will be representing the 42nd district, which includes, I think, all of the Las Virgenes Municipal Water District service area. So we're looking forward to that. We just wrapped up our legislative year a few days ago, and I'm proud to say my team sent 17 bills to the governor's desk, 4 of which have already been signed, and topics range from hospice reform to battery recycle. But I will give you my legislative update another time. Today, we are here to talk about wildfire safety and preparedness, because California is experiencing perhaps the hottest and driest start to September. 16 of the state's 17 major reservoirs entered the month below their historic average levels, several of them well below average. And this is yet another daunting reminder of California's extraordinary ongoing drought and water concerns, which can impact fire dangers. Just a few months ago, my office held emergencies in the 805, where we had several water districts, including Las Virgenes, as the panelists to discuss the urgency of our state's water conservation efforts. After experiencing here in Ventura County the Thomas and Woolsey fires, it is of utmost importance that our residents are prepared and have the resources to be proactive in water conservation efforts before we face any other wildfire emergencies. And in response to these trends and conditions, the state has provided significant investment in water-related activities in the current year budget. So I just want to go quickly over some of the money that has been allocated. The budget agreement has $2.8 billion over 4 years to support critical wildfire resilience programs to increase the pace, scale of forest health activities and decrease fire risk. And a few of these programs include resilient forests and landscapes, $482 million to enhance wildfire resilience across California's diverse landscapes by thinning forests, replanting trees, expanding grazing, and utilized prescribed fire. Then there's also $382 million for wildlife fuel breaks for CAL FIRE and the CCC to complete strategic fuel break projects over the next few years. Fire prevention grant funds will enable local communities to develop their own fire safety projects. And for community hardening, there's $44 million for Cal OES, Cal Fire, and the UC Fire Advisors program to improve defensible space and retrofits to harden homes and communities against wildfire ignitions. The budget supports educational programs that will help homeowners make improvements on their homes and properties. And this includes the UC Fire Advisors program, expanding defensible space inspectors, delivering wildfire resilience efforts, and expanding a pilot program to directly support retrofit on homes of low-income Californians. And there are other budget allocations as well that help with reforestation, science-based management, and assistance with the growing woods products industry. Many of these programs allow entities like our fire safe councils to apply for grants to assist with fire hardening programs locally, so they can mobilize residents to help protect their homes, communities, and environment from catastrophic fires. We are aware that wildfires are here to stay. We're going to continue to work with our federal, state, and local partners to mitigate their efforts on our state and our communities. And my office also has received numerous calls related to fire insurance premium increases, and I have to say cancellations. While the California Department of Insurance is responsible for enforcing the California Insurance Code, the California Insurance Code does not prohibit insurance companies from adopting eligibility criteria regarding brush proximity and wildlife exposure, provided that the eligibility criteria as written are not unlawful and are not applied in an unfairly discriminatory manner. And here is a slide from the State Insurance Commissioner's Office about how to file a request for assistance for residents who have been denied coverage or are having coverage issues with their insurance carriers. And as always, my office is here to help, and thank you for the opportunity to say a few words, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the program.
Thank you, Assemblymember. We appreciate that. That's great information. I have the slide up on the screen right now. And this is going to be, like I said, all this information will be posted on our website and other websites within a day or two after this. Okay, and remember, I did see that there's a question that was put in the Q&A, which is great, and we will get to those after all of our panelists have had the opportunity to share some information. Before I move on to our next panelist, Assistant Chief Drew Smith, there's a couple of quick things I want to mention. The Assemblymember brought up a great resource, which is our local fire safety councils. They're a great resource that you can get a hold of to talk and find out more information on fire prevention and fire safety. We'll have different websites. There's a slide at the end that has a lot of different information or websites to go to for anybody out there who wants to get some more information and work with their local fire safety councils as well. The other thing I do want to mention before we go on is that the district does offer options for customers. One is the use of recycled water fill stations. We are currently actively, we have one that's always been there, and it's at our Rancho composting facility. That is open to the public I'm not mistaken, at least on Saturdays, and you can go and get almost 300 gallons or 300 up to 300 gallons of recycled water to take back to your home. There is some requirements for that. One is taking an exam, which is pretty simple. We have that electronically that you can do online, and we also are in the process now of opening local recycled water fill stations in our 4 communities. Calabasas, if I'm not mistaken, is located at the senior center. And then there's one in Hidden Hills, and we're actively working right now with Agora and Westlake as to a specific location, but that will be available for customers to make it more convenient for them as well. And the compost, just to let you know, there's plenty of that to take. And basically what that does is when you do irrigate like trees, for instance, that helps keep the moisture in the ground and minimize evaporation because of this heat and because it's sunny a lot here in California. So I wanted to bring that up before we moved on. And with that, I am going to go ahead and introduce our next panelist, which is Chief Drew Smith with LA County Fire Department. And he's going to discuss some home hardening and defensible space tips. So if you're available there, Assistant Chief Drew, take it away.
I am up. Well, good evening. And tonight we'll be discussing a few ways that you can be prepared for wildfires. And we talk about wildfire season, and just know that you could have, based upon Mother Nature, a significant wildfire any time of the year. And we look at this very closely throughout the year and what our relative risk is. But we are getting into our prime wildfire season based upon environmental conditions, meaning the state of the fuels, and also what Mother Nature brings us as far as the climatology at hand to support larger fire growth or very challenging fires to combat. So today we'll be talking about quite a few topics, and one of those is wildfire preparedness and how to be ready, how to be set, and how to go, and how to stay informed before and during incidents. So a little bit of background on me. I've been with the organization for 34 years. I am your Assistant Fire Chief for Division 7, which incorporates the Santa Monica Mountains and the cities within the Santa Monica Mountains, extending from the Ventura County line to the LA City border. And that is Battalion 5, which is Agora Hills, Calabasas, Hidden Hills, Malibu, Westlake Village, plus all the unincorporated areas as mentioned. So my background with the organization, I wear a couple different hats, but one of those is in wildfire management. And also as a national fire behavior analyst, I have a background in fire ecology, fire behavior, fire danger rating, and also the balance between the wildlands, if you will, and the diversity between forest and wildland management, and also wildlife management, and how to bring that balance to our vulnerable areas where people live. I'm also qualified as an operations section chief. I've been fortunate enough to be all over the country and out of the country on wildland fire assignments. So my background is very supportive to our wildland needs in Los Angeles County, specifically within the Santa Monica Mountain Range, and looking at lessons learned post-Woolsey fire and the vulnerabilities that we have. That is something that your Los Angeles County Fire Department looks at every day through our cooperators at the national level, the state level, and the local level, with looking at what that fire danger looks like every day. This will just show you what Battalion 5 looks like, and the stars indicate our fire stations that are associated. So we have 12 fire stations within the Santa Monica Mountains, also 1 forestry camp and 2 hand crew camps, which we call our fire suppression camps. That one of them is ground-based, where we have our hand crews that go out and combat wildfires, but we also have a air attack base, if you will, which our hand crews are transported via Black Hawk helicopter to be inserted to a wildland fire to get an early combat with an aerial plus the combination of ground assault to combat wildland fires. Also included in this fire suppression camp or in Battalion 5, also we have the world-renowned 69 Bravo, which is the only one of its kind with the availability of 30,000 gallons of water that is in place that our helicopter fleet or contract air can come and snorkel out of and have rapid turnaround times to combat fires based upon, of course, weather that they can fly. And the multi-mission aircraft we have can fly in very, very high winds. So we have that opportunity to combat those fires with an aerial and combined ground assault. So I'd like to talk about Ready, Set, Go, and I hope that it's not new to anybody. And basically, it's your personal wildfire action plan. How do you, as a family or even as an individual with extended family that may be visiting, how do you prepare yourself and them in case of a wildfire? So we know living in the WUI, as we call it, was a wildland urban interface. It requires a higher level of preparedness that we have to think about every day. I can tell you that every day is not a Woolsey fire day. Every day we do have a set of vulnerabilities, but based upon the fuel conditions and or the weather conditions, we have fires that react differently within that type of climatology and fuel bed, whether it is a post Woolsey fire fuel bed that now has 3 years of growth on it, or if it's an area that hasn't seen fire frequency in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years plus. The dynamics of how fire moves across the landscape is significantly different. And there's a lot of variables that go into play on how fires move across the landscape. So your readiness is really a moving target based upon where you live and based upon what that climatology is for the day, or even looking out. So looking at your weather forecast, being informed with really valid information to know what your vulnerability is, to have a plan in place. So this booklet, which is a great booklet, a lot of agencies across the state modify this booklet to meet their needs, but this is specific to the Los Angeles County Fire Department, and there's some great resource information in here, and it can be downloaded at our website, which is fire.lacounty.gov. A lot of great information on our website there. So the ready portion is to create and maintain a defensible space, harden your home against flying embers. So having to be ready is that put the time and energy into a lot of different facets of your home. We know that we live in a very high fire hazard severity zone. That is because this is a beautiful place to live, but we do have, and I'm going to keep using the word vulnerabilities. We have vulnerabilities for where we live, vulnerabilities if a fire starts, vulnerabilities on evacuation routes based upon the point of origin and the fire spread. So there's a lot of different vulnerabilities that we have, and that self-preparedness and having that family plan, an extended family plan, is significant and must be prepared upon well ahead of a fire starting. Defensible space is one way to just keep working at hardening your home, and it can significantly help from saving your life and your property in case of a wildland fire. As we know, as a fire starts, we have an advancing fire front, but we also have an ember cast that starts new fires well ahead of the advancing fire front, which greatly enhances the rate of spread potentially, and or challenges us on an evacuation route or direction of travel that we might have in our mind, but we need to think of those alternatives. So hardening your home is significantly important, with great resources for you to be prepared in the event of a wildfire. And by and large, houses or property get destroyed primarily from an ember cast and those spot fires, if you will, or those embers that get into certain portions of your home, around your patio deck, or whatever it may be, when you have environmental conditions that support a rapid ignition or something to sit there that can then cause the destruction of your home well after the fire front has gone through. And if you take the time to harden your home and give us the defensible space we need, we have different tactical opportunities in the preservation or the protection or the defense of your home, which may come into play based upon where a fire starts and how much time that we can safely evacuate. And we'll go through some evacuation measures here shortly. So looking at our defensible space, and it talks about the zones, and that's the zone around your house. It's a zone just outside of your house with responsible landscaping, with vegetation that's maintained. And what we'd like to achieve within these zones is the transition or the dampening of the suppression of the limited probability of an ember to start and creep towards your home to find something that now can destroy your home based upon this ember cast. So looking at these zones and how we maintain that 200 feet of defensible space is highly important, because remember, when an advancing fire front happens, you have an ember cast, but also if you don't have up to 200 feet, you put a lot more heat energy towards your home to look at combustibles that can rapidly ignite based upon the heat energy from an advancing fire front. So we try to break that transition through this landscaping practice on ornamental vegetation that's maintained. So here's a couple of pictures that we'll show on ideal modification to the landscape. And I know you might think you're in the Sonoran Desert, but actually this is stuff that is our succulents. It has really hard-based landscaping. So your moistening of, or your foliar moisture of those embers to start and spread is challenged with this type of landscape. And I know that it is not the beautification of our native vegetation throughout surrounding your home, but remember, when we have our highest fire danger days, those fuels are significantly susceptible to support fire spread. So this is something that you would see in zone 1, which is around your home for 30 feet. And then we know that we have a 5-foot ember resistive zone, or ember free zone, if you will, on something that could catch fire adjacent to or within 5 feet of your home. So this looks as a picture that we show as something that would be most ideal for that ornamental vegetation and landscaping practice. How to harden your home. We do a lot of community outreach to educate people that live within the wildland urban interface. And you can look at this street, you see big wide roads, you see nice palm trees, you see very well manicured landscape. And this is on a nice summer day that's at 80 degrees. Just remember, if this picture, and if you look at the shadows, is sometime around 11 o'clock in the morning, it can look like midnight out there because of an advancing fire front with a smoke column and environmental conditions. So I know that one thing that we look at when we talk about hardening your home, and this shows a picture of an eave cover, if you will, that is an ember dampering device, if you will, that'll still ventilate those voids in your attic space, but it significantly reduces the opportunity for embers to enter into your attic space, which is one of the challenges that we have, and we have significant structure loss based upon some of these, what I would call easy type of practice to modify your home, to harden your home, to give your firefighters and the fire a reduced chance of getting into your attic space. So we look at brush clearance, at local requirements that we have in place. We have that ember resistive zone within 5 feet of your home, as we talked about. We look at stuff that is around your home. If you have a pool, it's the foam floaty noodles. It could be wicker furniture. All that stuff plays a role, and it responds to environmental conditions just like the wildland fuels do, based upon how dry it is or how windy it is, whether it's sheltered or not. And it becomes, basically, I use a term, a fly trap, if you will, that embers can get into these combustibles that are around your home, which we tend to overlook sometimes because we're just living our lives. But when we know that we have high fire danger days, that those type of precautions need to be taken to do the best preventive maintenance we can for the short term, because we know we're going into a high risk day, a fire weather watch or a fire weather warning, which would mean a red flag, to know that we have vulnerability to potentially have embers around our home. Good, perfect, thank you. So prepare your family and your home ahead of the time for possibility of evacuation. And I want to talk to evacuations a little bit. This is creating your wildfire action plan. As this is an exit drill that you have for how, when we talk to exit drills in a home for a structure fire, we need to have a family plan that is set, that your family knows the plan and what they knew and possibility of an evacuation order. So we look at having your personal or family emergency supply kits, which would include water, which would include making sure that you get your medications, the things that you need, and having your essentials that you need if you need to leave your home ahead of an advancing fire, because everything we do on evacuations is based upon time and where the fire starts. So having options is what you need, but you need to be set and prepared in front of an order being given. So we understand that is going to be a significant inconvenience for people. We have a lot of family dynamics going on. We have kids that are going to be at school. You have loved ones that are traveling. You have a lot of different moving parts in your lives, and we understand that. So we want you to be as prepared as possible and set. So if we have to do an evacuation, that can be communicated and you have time on your side to get to a safe location. So we have in this Ready, Set, Go program, we give great resource information on how to create your emergency plan for your home. So people living in the Santa Monica Mountains on high risk days really need to have a heightened awareness about how your internal family plan is set. And Ready, Set, Go, this guides you to success, to be a successful, because the ultimate end state is survivability in people's lives. That is our ultimate priority, is life safety. These guides are available to download online from our website, which I gave you earlier. And so there's great information for creating your Ready, Set, Go for you and your family, in the emergency survival guide for really all risk type of emergencies. So challenges that you may not see, and if you have lived through an evacuation or you've seen the aftermath, these are a couple things that happen when we have to do an evacuation and challenges we have. And this is where time comes into play. If we wait too long, for an evacuation order, and we give the order to evacuate, and you don't have your preparedness and you don't do it as efficiently and be as time sensitive as possible, you may be challenged on an evacuation route because of this. And now it puts you in a compromising position to have to now think about your next option, your next survival move, which, given that maybe if hypothetically you took 2 hours to do something, because are they going to put the fire out? How bad is it really? I don't see much smoke, but Mother Nature and how fire travels across the landscape can happen very quick. So for emergencies on evacuations, not just for wildfires, it could be for mud and debris flow in different areas as well. So, and you have to have multiple routes, because we cannot, as fire and law, give exact routes that you're going to take. And the why behind that is we have a fire starts that happens below you, and you are set on your travel route is going to be out your street and to the left, and the fire is actually to your left. That's some place that we don't want to send you. We may send you down your street and to the right. So you have to be flexible. You have to be as sympathetic as you can to our law partners that are giving direction. And you need to have multiple evacuation routes for the potential, because what we do not want to have happen is you evacuating and fire crosses between you and your evacuation route. So you have to look at your travel plans. I know a lot of us are creatures of habit, that we take the same route home, and we can really identify our workday by how we travel and what our time is. But we have to look at those alternatives and know your road systems on the potential evacuation and direction, and take those orders, if you will, direction from whether we have law enforcement agencies, whether it be the Sheriff's Department, LAPD, CHP, or even Caltrans that are helping direct. We're doing this to take you the safest direction, which may once again be significantly inconvenience to you because you plan on going somewhere else, but we're taking you a different route. That is all based upon time and the direction of fire spread, so we don't compromise your safety, putting you on a road system that can be challenged with infrastructure damage, like power poles, as you see. Rock and debris comes out of the hillsides very significantly after a wildfire, and the vegetation is gone, and that watershed is gone from holding a lot of the rock system. It really displaces and disturbs the landscape. So we look at the travel routes based upon where we can be most efficient to send you to a safer location. We have a significant amount of preparedness resources for you. There is, and we want you to use valid information. So we are cooperators with the National Weather Service, which gives us our weather information, which we contribute to look at our relative fire danger risk every day. We also work with the Sheriff's Department. We also work with Edison. So all of us cooperators work on pre-planning in case of emergency on how we're going to look at this. We work with Office of Emergency Management on how notifications are going to go out. I mentioned Southern California Edison. Our cooperators, we communicate with conference calls before a high-risk day and continually throughout the year for best practice, and having those relationships so we can be as efficient as possible to get the proper notifications. So one of my warnings for you is please use valid information rather than listening to the fire radio, interpreting what you hear differently, or getting your information from a Facebook or an Instagram or a Snapchat or some. Please use valid information for direction, because we're going to send a unified message out from our cooperators, which is OEM, Sheriff's Department, and our cities that we work with, so we can get one message on direction for what we would like you to do in case of an emergency. So looking at evacuation orders, when there's only 3 types of orders that we have an evacuation order, which we are asking / mandating, requiring that you go and evacuate. We also have an evacuation warning. And an evacuation warning is we have identified that this has potential impact. We have time. We put a community or a zone in a different warning to say this is a preparatory level for you to be ready, that gives you more time rather than an evacuation order. But also we have a shelter in place. And I know that could be scary for some, it's scary for us. But on an advancing wildfire that has the potential to impact the road system or compromise your travel route, a shelter in place may be your safest alternative, that we can get air resources to you. We can get ground units to you, engine companies, or that you have to take the necessary measures because you've done your home hardening, you've done things in the preparatory phase of your vegetation management, of your landscaping practices, that your safest option may be to shelter in place. Because one thing we do not want to do is have you evacuate without an order with an advancing fire front and putting you in a significant life condition in a mid-slope road or on a road system that you cannot see, that you're actually, cars may be compromised by running efficiently because of the oxygen that is in the air. We've had significant amount of wildfires throughout the United States where people try to navigate with their vehicles and there's not enough air and oxygen for their vehicle to run efficiently. So potentially that it can stall. We don't want to put you in a road system with little to no options, because then you're just going on hope, or you're going on what your intuition may be. And that could be catastrophic in nature. And so the shelter in place means you should go inside, shut and lock your doors, your windows. You should be prepared to self-sustain until further notice, or until you get direction from emergency personnel on that. So take action immediately when a wildfire strikes. Leave early and give your family the best chance of surviving. Help firefighters for keeping roads clear of congestion, enable them to move freely. And what we ask is follow the rules. And when we have evacuations, your time is just as important as the person who's in front of you in a car or 10 cars in front of you. There's a lot of stuff that people's state of mind can be challenged. And so our expectation is when we know that we have an emergency, that we want you to follow the rules and leave early. So with this, there's once again a significant amount of resources available. So you can visit ready.lacounty.gov /emergency-notifications, learn more about emergency mass notification and communication tools within LA County. We work hand in hand with our cooperators, Office of Emergency Management in our cities for making these notifications. So here's some valid Division 7 is where, if you're on this call and you live within the Santa Monica Mountains between Ventura County and LA City, you are in Division 7. Here are some resources that we update. And just remember, as an expanding incident happens, we are not going to give updates every 2 minutes. So when we have good direction and solid information, we will post it. It'll be broadcasted. We have a lot of media outlets that's going to support us with this. So information will be there. Here's some other resources that we have for incident updates. And all these that you see, they're not going to be sending out their own messaging. This is all unified from one voice from the incident command post on what the expectation is, on where we're going to go with an incident, what needs to be done. So also getting involved, the community emergency response team, we work with CERT to be in place to help in a supporting mechanism. So please, if you want to be involved, please look into the CERT program for community involvement. And it also gives you some great information and self-resiliency and awareness for what happens in the nature of an all-risk type of emergencies that we may have here within the Santa Monica Mountains. I would like to thank you for your time, and we will get you the information. Your community services liaison is Megan Courier, and so she is going to be the direct contact for any of your needs. She communicates with me every day. One reason it's not me, because I'm most likely out on the fire line, being part of that incident command structure to manage the fire. So Megan Courier is your liaison for that information. I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Assistant Chief Smith. That was an incredible amount of incredibly important information. Thank you for spending your time and sharing that with us. And again, all of this is going to be available within a day or two on multiple websites. So it's not like you have to jot everything down. There will be available for you to check out. Thank you so much
for
all of that. And also, just in the sake of time, I'm going to move right into our final panelist today, Mr. Clark Stevens, the CEO of Resource Conservation District of the Santa Monica Mountains. And so with that, Clark, please go ahead and introduce yourself, and we'll go from there.
I will do so quickly. So obviously we're here for two reasons. One is preparing for wildfire season, and also because we have water issues that are directly impacting people. We have drought, and as a result, we've got water restrictions in the water district area. The Resource Conservation District, next slide, please. Or can I advance? I think you have to do it for me, right? Yeah. We have a number of programs. As it says here, we are involved with land stewardship and resource conservation. We help both private and public landowners. We're like your land doctor. We're not regulatory. You don't have to pay attention to anything we say, but we research what we say. We have science staff, and our biggest, newest program is community resilience and sustainable land use, under which we have a number of wildfire related grants. Next slide, please. I also serve on the California Fire Science Consortium Advisory Board. I'm an architect and a planner, and have been working in resource conserving strategies in multiple states for going on 25 years now. Our district is much larger. For 60 years, it covered basically west of the Palisades, north from the ocean as far as Chatsworth, and into southeastern Ventura County. We're a two-county special district. And so we serve the cities of Thousand Oaks, other cities within, and unincorporated county areas in southeastern Ventura County as well, which I know the water district does too. Next slide. So we'll just do a little illustration here of what I'm going to talk about and try and say something optimistic as a result. Now, there doesn't appear to be any sound. That's fine. But what you want to see here is this is the National Fire Lab the insurance companies have that is showing you how ignition happens at your home. So the key thing here is that 0 to 5. and they're highlighting that here. And you can move on to the next slide as well here, and we'll move from there. The reason I wanted to point that out is because 100% of the people who return from being evacuated from wildfire, and please do follow Captain Smith's advice and evacuate when and as told. But when you come back and your home has ignited, you're not crying because your landscape is burned. You're crying with joy because your house is still standing. And I don't say that lightly. I know there are people on this call that have been directly impacted by wildfire, Thomas and Woolsey. So we've gotten big into these programs. There's a few I want to highlight here real quickly. Home ignition zone evaluation, home ignition. If your home doesn't ignite, we don't have a problem. Defensible space landscape consultation is also something we do, but it's proximate to the home that we're most concerned about. And then kind of third item, and I saw this in the Q&A, composted mulch is another program we've got. These are all free programs, but it starts with a home ignition zone. To be eligible for any of the ones that follow on from that, you start by gaining an understanding of what your vulnerabilities are at your home and within your defensible space. Next. So home hardening. This is our demonstration structure out in cooperation with LA County Fire Department. We just met yesterday to kick off the demonstration garden design project. So this is going to be a place you can come and see a wildland urban intermix condition, meaning surrounded by wildland, and different ways, beautiful ways that you can live safely and conserve resources and maintain the emotional and the satisfaction of living within the resources of this mountain and not feeling like you need to cut it all down in order to be safe. Next. So priority. People say, oh, you want me to do with my house? More money, right? My insurance has gone up, everything's going up. But look here on our little, for every item on the defensiblespace.org website, we have this little graph here. Cost goes up, priority goes up in this direction. So look at the high priority, low cost items here, maintenance and vents. Next slide. Maintenance. Now this, admittedly, a gutter guard is an investment. I can tell you it's not a big investment. I've done it not that long ago, actually. But if you don't, maintenance, right? Keep these things clean because that edge there is vulnerable. So you don't want to create any campfires. It's not easy to set a log on fire when you're doing a campfire, but you have little brush, kindling, right? This is the kind of thing you want to avoid. So maintenance is low cost, necessary. Next. So again, to start, we do a free wildfire home evaluation. We call them home ignition zone evaluations. We are trained according to a particular way of looking at Southern California wind-driven wildfire. So all of our evaluators are trained in that approach. You can see example on the right. This happens to be the former home of one of our board members. And it is showing a pretty good and likely to be almost legal version of zone 0 in the future. Zone 0 being that 0 to 5, right? So different size rocks, a mix of small vegetation mass, but again, no vulnerability at the base of the home. Next. So I will talk about the landscape, but given that what we're here to look at is this combination of our worst part of the wildfire season approaching, that is our driest time and the beginning of our wind season. We also want to be water wise about how we handle our landscape in general, but particularly right now when you're on a really restricted water budget. Next slide. So the ember resistant zone is what we called in our defensiblespace.org website. And again, this is a cooperative effort of both Ventura County and LA County Fire departments were involved. We had native plant societies involved. So people on the habitat side, as well as on the life safety and wildfire protection side here. And the 0 to 5 is coming. I thought maybe Assemblymember Irwin might mention this, but very soon 0 to 5 will be a mandated inorganic non-combustible zone. So right now, with your limited water budget, if you're keeping anything alive in 0 to 5, that rhymes, I would stop. I would not use your water there. If you can zone it or control it. Speaking of controlling it, now's the time to convert. If you're on spray irrigation, you're subject to more restrictions than you would be in higher water use than you would be if you're on drip. So these are things you can start to look at. Next slide. From there out, the home protection zone, which is on Chief Smith's slide, is zone 1. We go out from 5 to 30 or 50, depending on slope. And this is where you are, typically, if you're irrigating, this is where you're irrigating, is in this zone. And given the restrictions, there's a tree in here, right? Keep your shade alive. I would in particular keep your shade alive on the south and west sides of your home. Any near shade there, if you're budgeting water, you want to let other things go before your trees go. And microclimate, we're all experiencing it right now. There's bigger sustainability issues if we don't have shade and we're all therefore cooling our homes more often. We see what the results are. Next slide. So here's zone 2. You could think of this as the managed habitat zone. If you're in a wildland urban interface areas where you have wildlands. Beyond that, it's from 50 statistically beyond 100 feet, according to studies that one of those fire scientists that I'm on the advisory board for has shown consistently that there is no positive relationship between the condition of the landscape beyond 100 feet and the survivability of your home in a wildfire. It just doesn't bear out in post-fire analysis. That being said, typically for firefighter life safety issues, up to 200 is in the code. So that's why Chief Smith shows out to 200. That's not to tell you go out and clear everything out to 200 feet. That means that the fire department can make a call that in your particular conditions, if they're going to protect your home, their flesh and bone people have to be safe. Your home may be just fine, but they may ask for more distance there. That being said, it doesn't have that distance doesn't have a causal relationship between survivability at the house, statistically speaking. Next, please. And keep in mind, I'm from a resource conservation organization. So we got into this business not because we're life safety experts, there are other people handling that, but because we really wanted to understand how to maintain our resources responsibly with a human community. So again, back to 0 to 5. This is where you want to put your effort. Great opportunity to look at rethinking the design of your landscape right now. All right, 0 to 5, mostly hardscape. There are lots of things you can do there, but foundation base plantings are a thing of the past in Southern California. So let those go and remove them, because obviously if it's dead material, it's not safe to have it near your home. And so that's what you ought to be looking at now. Next slide, please. So moving out from there, the thing you want to, I mentioned keep your shade, right? Keep your trees alive. On the left, you're seeing a condition that you don't want with your trees. So you see some lower branches contacting, there's low material here, there is non-composted dry mulch, there is all the ingredients on the left to create a crown fire in that tree, and then that tree is a danger to you. So if this tree is your shade tree, everything else around it, the base, look at rock mulch, consider doing things, no laddering. Next slide, please. What I mean by laddering is this, right? If the flame length of assume everything's on fire, right? So on the ground here. It's ignited. If you have a shrub underneath this that is tall enough to produce a flame length that can ignite the tree, it just builds from there. That's called laddering. So you want to maintain and space things. Maintenance, again, critical. If you do have conditions where you've got small, fine material falling, clean it out. Don't let it be fuel for your shrubs. Next slide, please. Here is a real world example of what a defensible, a rock zone can do for you. This is post-Woolsey fire at the Liberty Canyon underpass, which is one of our projects. It's a wildlife crossing. It's the first step. You've heard about the one going over. Well, this is the part that went under. But look here on the left. It did not ignite in the fire front of Woolsey. Woolsey went over, jumped over by Chesbro west of here. And then on day 2 or 3, it slowly started burning back from the west to the east. Got into this fairly new non-composted mulch. I'll talk about that in a minute. And burned all of the mulch in every plant that's in there. But look at this. Not only did it not cross the rock area, these are all green plants still here, same mulch on this side, but there's even plants within there. Look at these. These are all alive within the rock. So it's a really good ground fire barrier. And that's what Captain was trying to get across in that sequencing. By the time it's getting closer, embers are going to get everywhere, right? You don't want them getting into your house. So cheap hardware cloth, get it down to 1/8 inch over all your vents. The other thing though is that base condition. If you have some hardscape there, embers just aren't going to be able to inflame. Ground fire is not going to be able to get to your home. Imagine that's, you know, what's coming towards you in your homes over here. Next slide, please. So somebody in the chat brought up mulch, right? Is mulch flammable? Most organic material is technically, in fact, all technically at some level is flammable. The question is how easily is it ignited? So one of our programs is taking maintenance trimmings from managed landscapes, managed habitats, having it chipped. We have a free service here where you can come get it chipped, but you have a commitment to go to Las Virgenes Municipal Water District and pick up an equal amount, or you can pay extra to have it delivered to you, an equal amount of compost. Because when you activate mulch with compost, it does a couple of things. It reduces its ignitability dramatically on day 1, and it starts the breakdown process, which actually sequesters carbon. So our program started as a carbon sequestration idea, not as a wildfire related idea. 0 to 5, no mulch, right? Nothing organic. That can't be there. But beyond that, with your limited water budget, keep your shade alive on the south and west in particular. You're probably going to need to let shrubs go if your system isn't allowed, if you have a lot of those. But when you do use water beyond the trees, it really should be proximate to that 0 to 5. Because if you think about it, if your embers are dropping out, rolling towards your non-combustible zone, if fuel moisture, low growing plants with good fuel moisture and good structure, which we could talk about later and what makes a good plant versus a bad plant, is going to be your friend, right? Because it'll stop the embers, they'll extinguish because the moisture is in that near zone. An ember 100 feet, let alone 200 feet, even a flame that far away isn't what you need to worry about. It's that ember that gets through to some vulnerability at your house. Next, please. So you say, well, this is complicated. You're probably thinking about your house like, well, what do you mean? Like, how do I know? Again, you can learn a good bit from one of our free home ignition zone evaluations about what your vulnerabilities are. But if you're in that program, we've got quite a few opportunities to provide follow-up, more detailed and design-oriented with landscape designers that can give you a specific sketch plan for your site. So that's something you want to do. These are all available through the website, through our website, the rcdsmm.org website. Next, please. And I think about the last. Yeah, so here we go. defensiblespace.org or rcdsmm.org to get signed up for these programs. I think the next one should be the last. Yeah, this is an acknowledgement. You can see all these people were involved with that website. That website is so dense. There's so much information there. And again, you see a mix of resource agencies, elected officials, and fire departments that worked with us on this website. And it had to be consensus, right? Everything in here, everybody saw and agreed to. Next, please. So appreciate your time. Pauline Allen couldn't be here tonight. She's on her vacation, but she's going to be the direct contact for these things. You can email her directly, or there are sign-up links on our website to just get into the program even before she gets back from vacation, if you'd like. Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity, the invitation, and look forward to answering some questions.
Thank you, Clark. We appreciate that. Again, just a magnificent amount of information and great points and tips to give to all of the homeowners and participants right now, and then whoever will be watching this. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen right now, and I'm going to open things up for Q&A. So let me go ahead and do that. And if anybody out there listening in right now wants to ask a question, please do so. Just simply raise your hand, and then I will be able to see you. There's quite a few questions that are actually in the chat that I'll get to, but I want to give anybody out there right now the opportunity to participate. And so let me see here. It looks like that we have. I'm going to go ahead and is it Sherilyn? I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. So Sherilyn, if you don't mind, please ask your question. Yeah, I think you have to unmute yourself as well.
Our grass is dead. I mean, it's so flammable right now. What are we supposed to do? Some of us are thinking of the artificial grass. I don't know if that's flammable, or we should just put a bunch of rocks instead of grass. So do you have any suggestions?
Thank you, Sherilyn. Yeah, I heard you. Your lawn is dead and you're concerned that it's flammable. I'd like to have my Director of Engineering and External Affairs, Joe McDermott, if you would like to chime in and possibly answer that question for Sherilyn, that would be great.
Yeah, hi, Mike. I'll give it my first stab, and then if Clark or Assistant Chief Smith wants to weigh in, the advice I would give is, and Clark mentioned this, is in that 0 to 5 foot zone 0. Anything vegetation, dead, dying vegetation should be removed completely. So that immediate 5 foot zone, if you have dead or dying grass, I would get it removed. And so I'd like for maybe Clark, if you want to take a stab, if you have any recommendations about what should happen beyond that 5 foot.
Well, we have programs we have to deliver. So I would say, Sherilyn, to start by getting yourself signed up for a home ignition zone evaluation, understanding what flammable items are also dangerous items, and then getting advice on a follow-on second service for a specific design. And there are a number of opportunities for grass replacement. There are meadow mixes, there are native meadows, there are things that you can do that are low water, that some people might say, well, but that's high maintenance. For me, it's having something like this in your landscape gives you an opportunity to engage with the landscape, and it can be pleasant. But yeah, the idea that you're going to have dry grass igniting is a concerning one, but it's low fuel, so I wouldn't worry too much because it's not going to create a lot of flame. It will transmit fire, so that's why what Joe's saying is really important. Once it gets to within 5 feet, it shouldn't have any path to your home. It's not going to produce a lot of embers. It will ignite, but it's not going to produce a lot of heat. So in that sense, it's not an immediate danger, and it's a design opportunity. And beyond that, it's like every place is different, and there could be some wonderful, gathering spaces you could create using permeable hard material. But yeah, it gets more complicated, and you want something that's beautiful and maintainable and safe. So that's a design issue. So get in line, and we'll get a professional out there to help you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Clark. Assistant Smith, do you want to chime in on something on
No,
this?
nope.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, gotcha. Sherilyn, my recommendation in hearing this is to get on, see if you can contact the Resource Conservation District, and they could get involved in that program. They can come out and give you some pointers, like Clark was saying, on how to make sure that you're hardening your home to the best of your ability.
So how do I get in touch with them?
Do you have access to a computer?
I'm on it now.
Okay. What we'll do is, I know that we'll have this available with that link that is, that he was showing us tomorrow or the next day at the latest, and you can click on that, or I believe you can go, maybe Clark, what is the website?
Hey, Mike, you could pull up the resource slide that was
Okay.
at the end.
Yep. All right.
And it's on that slide.
Now, let me see here.
Can you go to the water district? Will they tell you?
She has to be water
It should be the
district.
next, it should be the next slide, Mike.
Oh, the next one? This one?
Yeah, there you go. Defensible Space info. So, and wildfire home evaluation. So second from bottom.
So, yeah.
And for our viewers, participants, you don't have to write all this down. Again, we'll have this available on, we'll have this on the district website, which is the one at the top, www.lvmwd.com.
Okay,
Is that good, Sherilyn?
sounds good. Okay,
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here with us.
thank you.
All right. I know that, Barbara, did you still want to ask a question? I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. I know you lowered your hand, but I'm going to go ahead and unmute you if you feel like it, Barbara.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
My anxiety went up a little bit when I heard get rid of the dead grass right away. My application for the rebate has been in for a month, and I'm told that it will be at least another 2 weeks. So, I hope I still have the lawn service that's willing to put in the carapia that was recommended. I was told I can't even put in the cement, take out the grass and put in the cement yet. I don't understand that process of having to wait, because, this is fire season and I'm a bit unnerved by all of it. And I am worried about my trees. Can I water my trees if it's not a Tuesday? I haven't been watering them, and it's starting to show, even with mulch around them.
Yes, the answer is absolutely, Barbara. One of the exceptions to our conservation requirements is hand watering of trees. We absolutely want you to continue to have your trees stay alive. It's imperative for so many different reasons, but I think that if I was going to give you, and Joe and anyone else, please chime in too, but I think kind of like the rule of thumb would be to water to basically out to where the canopy meets or stops, and water in that just general circular area. That way that tree is going to get adequate water into the ground, and so it can absorb it into the root structure. But Joe or anybody else, do you have anything else you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, Mike, I think you answered that one question regarding hand watering. That could be any day of the week, any amount of time. Again, our customers still do have a water budget, albeit it's been reduced by 50%. So we do encourage customers to water as needed for their trees. So the real restriction is on the sprinkler system, and the sprinklers, automatic sprinkler systems, can only be used the 1 day per week, either Tuesday or Thursdays, depending on your address.
Okay.
Regarding the rebate, so there's two things going on here. There are requirements about when you can start work and if you start too early, then you may not get the full rebate, or you could find yourself not getting reimbursed for work that you do if you start too early. I know they want to be able to document the existing conditions before you do your work. So that's part of it. But with regards to safety though, because this is what we're talking about is safety. If there's a delay on the rebates, then my recommendation would be to do what you need to do from a safety standpoint.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Barbara. We're here to help you with resources to make sure that you feel comfortable. I know that there's a lot of anxiety and stress associated with this, but we're here to do whatever we can to make sure that that's minimal and to get you to where you need to be.
Thank you.
Absolutely, of course. I know that I don't see any other hands up right now, but I'm going to go ahead and go to our Q&A here. There's several questions in here. I think this one might be specifically for Assemblymember Irwin potentially. Let's see, or maybe not. Saw one for anyways. This question is from Susan, and she said, residents need financial assistance immediately to pay for all of our dead landscaping, which is now a fire danger to those of us in the fire danger area. So it's not a question per se, but is there any financial assistance that we know of that can help homeowners remove dead vegetation that's out there right now? I don't know if there's anybody that says it. Clark, you have your hand up. Yes, please.
Well, sort of. It's cold comfort. If you have dead brush in your former garden because of watering restrictions, you do want to remove it. And the indirect help is that we have a program to chip it and combine it with compost and help retain moisture. So composted mulch for now, keeping some soil moisture in the area where that was. If you, again, grass is not good. It's not chippable. It's very light material. But if you're actually losing shrubs, chipping on site, and it's really important that we chip on site because some of the shrubs that people use are actually invasives and not good for the habitat. So we don't want stuff getting transported and used elsewhere. So that's why you make a pile and we send someone there to chip it for you. And then the commitment is that you mix it with compost so it reduces the ignitability. So that's one approach, and something that if you get signed up, it won't cost you anything.
Thank you, Clark. I think that was a great answer for that one. Another question is, can we send a response with the breakdown on the funding that Assemblymember Irwin listed? Do we have that available, like, later in the Q&A, I suppose, like that we'll be providing? Joe?
Yeah, Mike, we'll go ahead and provide that breakdown when we post something on the website.
Cool. All right. Thank you.
And Jeremy, if you're a wonk, aren't there websites where you could look at the budget and look at, I know I have to, because I'm always looking for where we're going to get money to do our work. But aren't there some opportunities to really look at the breakdowns through web resources?
Ledge info is the best, and I'm going to get the Senate bill right now, and then we can pull that up. And I also have the Assembly members breakdown too that I can share.
Okay, very good. All right. So at a minimum, we'll make sure that that's posted when we do the Q&A and the answers, and have that available for everybody to check out. Another question that has been asked here in the chat is basically this individual is suggesting that they're not aware of any scientific data. Georgia is the person for any type of clearance from the 100-foot point to the 200-foot point? Is there any way to provide that?
Well, yeah, Alex Seifert is a fire scientist who has, along with, oh my goodness, not Jack Cohen. I'm such a nice guy. John Keeley have done the most work on analyzing. But I think I mentioned in the presentation, if you're asked to go beyond 200 feet, you probably have historically done so, first of all. It's probably been managed that way by the fire department. In any case, it's a firefighter life safety issue. It's not a home protection. It's not a structure safety issue per se. That's the way it's been explained to me, but I don't want to speak too much to Drew. But on the science of it, no, statistically, the condition of the landscape, be it gasoline-soaked creosote bush beyond, is not what relates to the loss of the home. That's not to say that that's a good thing, but the homes burn for other reasons than the landscape condition beyond 100 feet. So it's really about how the fire department operates. Is that true, Drew? I don't want to.
That is, so basically, yes, there is scientific data. And so it comes out to energy release, but there's a lot of factors in that. There's the fuel type and how high and how many tons per acre you have, the slope percentage, and it talks the scientific data based upon the energy release of a fuel bed. And Clark is right, it's based upon the amount of intensity of an advancing wildfire and how much heat energy is distributed towards whether it be a structure, a vehicle, or a human. And so I can say that when we go to 200 feet, that helps reduce the energy that goes towards a home when we're on a structure defense mission for survivability of your firefighters to do a structure defense mission. So you can look at scientific data, which I have. There's fire modeling, which I use all the time, that it can show the difference of a continuous fuel bed at 100 feet on a certain set of standards, environmental conditions, compared to 200 feet in environmental conditions. And if you map it out towards whether it be a person, a vehicle, or a home, the energy release distributed through space and time is significantly different based upon the fuel type, environmental conditions that are in place. So once again, Clark is correct. There is scientific data based upon a human element and or a structure or something that has the susceptibility to burn, but there's a lot of different variables on that, which Clark talked about with slope percentages and distances earlier. So there is scientific data on that.
2 follow-ups though. I wouldn't want anyone here, again, we're a resource agency, we're not a regulatory agency, but we have to know the regulations in order to advise people on the resources. I do not advise you, particularly in the coastal zone, to go out and remove more habitat beyond what has historically been done. That actually requires a coastal development permit because you are converting land, you're developing the landscape into some other use, and it's not habitat use anymore. So wouldn't want you to think if it's not treated out that far that you should suddenly go and do it. That's something that's done in consultation with the fire department to determine if you need to go further. The other thing I wanted to follow up on, I'm so excited that we're actually funded by LA County Fire to design with their own designers and landscape architects a demonstration garden where we've got up to 200 feet of land. And I saw, Drew, that your crew had been out there and doing some treatment in our garden area. Out to about 100. So we're going to be able to show it's not, I think it's hard to get a picture of, well, what do you mean? Is it the same? Clearly 0 to 5 is no vegetation. If you're asked to go out towards 200, it's not to create rock mulch and no habitat, right? It dissipates and it's about specific conditions and thinning. And this garden has 4 different directions around it. Each quadrant is going to be a different kind of garden that you're all going to want. And 2 of them have enough distance to show. And we're going to make it clear where 30, 100, and 200 are. So you'll be able to visit this place and kind of see it. and also just be inspired to go and create a defensible space garden for yourself, because I think you'll find that it can really be quite a wonderful place to be and good habitat as well. There are other questions in here about native plants and the types, and there are native plants that are great because of thick leaves and certain massing conditions that are great plants in a high fire zone. There are also non-native plants that are even succulents that aren't good ones, not just because they're not native, but because they have bad characteristics. Believe it or not, ice plant is a bad fire plant, and because of the matting and the debris and the dryness underneath it. So that's all on defensiblespace.org. If you want to learn about plants in detail, you can go there and talk about plants, but it's really about the structure of your plants, not the individual. There's no list that if you plant these plants, you're going to be fire safe, right? It's all about where you put them and how you place them.
Thank you, Clark. I have another hand raise. Georgia, if you're there, I'm going to put you, go ahead and unmute yourself and please ask your question.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Actually, I have two just listening to Clark. There was, I have this, not that I can cite it right at this second, but Keely did a very interesting study down in San Diego with some co-authors that actually showed that sumac with a minimal amount of watering retained clearly the most moisture, making it more fire resilient. So I just thought I would mention that. But the other thing is, Drew cited a number of papers that supported the 100, 200 foot clearance, or however you want to describe that. Can you please post those? Because I'd like to read them. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, is that your question, Georgia?
Yes.
Okay.
So Georgia, I'm citing fire modeling that talks about fire travel distance and distribution of heat energy over time and space. So I can give you those resources so you can look at Rothermill's fire models or the Scott Bergen models and equations to that, which I live in the fire modeling world. It'll talk about that, but I think that what you're relating to is what's the difference in 100 feet compared to 200 feet, where Clark is correct based upon structure loss and how that worked. That is in relationship to fire line intensity and our survivability to be in a very hazardous place to do the best for life safety and structure defense. That's what it's relating to.
Georgia, I'd also mentioned that one of our tasks in our federal grant, the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation grant, which is actually through the Conservation Biology Institute, we're a subcontractor, is working with the National Fire Lab to model embers and how vegetation can be used as a kind of ember fence, or a landscape fence is the term. And so we have some of the same modelers that are responsible for the real-time modeling, like Wind Ninja, that the fire department uses on big fires to figure out based on the weather, like where's the fire going to move, how's it going to be, where do we stage people. They're now looking at a fine scale model, so blocks of vegetation. And I mean, they spent like 6 months figuring out how to model an oak tree, a ceanothus, so the right density. So the first round, I think, is going to show us some things. We're going to keep going. This is a career for the young engineer who's on the team, I think, but as you might expect, and it was mentioned here, where the embers drop and what happens to them, and fuel moisture levels in an ember drop zone, that can be designed if we knew more about site-specific modeling. So right now we're kind of stuck with these big, like, well, less fuel, the closer you get, and right, lower. And but we're trying to learn more about how we can use wind. I'm from snow country originally, and West Michigan, which was sand and snow. It didn't, it was like, and you watch and see what wind does with fences, and snow piles up certain distance on the front, a little bit on the back, a lot more. And if we can figure out how to structure our homes relative, we have the same fire that we can't stop this fire department, the best fire departments in this part of the world, coordinated. I shouldn't say this, but I, as a 30-year resident of Topanga, don't worry when there's no wind and there's a terrain fire. I just know we're going to be okay. It's when the wind is blowing, and when the wind is blowing at a dangerous level that's not stoppable, it's always from the same zone. And so if we combine that and understand embers, someday we hope to be able to say, it would be good to plant more trees here. It would be good to let your chaparral, even in this condition, in bands or in lines, come closer. So we hope to get to that point, because we're really trying to make it so that we can, the reason we all moved up here, for those of us who live in this condition, we don't remove the reason we got here in order to feel like we can stay here.
Agreed.
So that's what our work's about.
As an analyst in the fire behavior research and development modeling world, so I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm involved in that at the national level with a lot of the names that you cited tonight.
Very good. Thank you. We got about 5 minutes left, and then we'll wrap this up. And just as a reminder to everybody, we are going to have every question that is in the Q&A right now. We will make sure that we answer and provide that on our website. I just want to maybe ask, I think that this is probably a good question to maybe end this on today with this discussion, but it's really important. And this is probably more geared toward Assistant Fire Chief Smith. The question is, in planning evacuation routes or just evacuation period, what happens to people living alone with mobility problems? Like, for instance, if my neighbor is home and will take me with them, that's great. But what if I'm alone when an evacuation is called and I have no mobility problem? What is the what would you tell that person?
So what I would tell that person, in the best case scenario, when we do evacuations, we look at the density of the population and we look at time for them to get to a safer location. I don't want people to think that we do an evacuation and fire is on top of them. Evacuations are done with time. And if we have time, this is where we have our law partners, and I'll use the word canvassing and helping give direction with stuff. We have had people that have slept through advancing fires. On the Woolsey fire, I talked to several people that slept through it in their homes, and they woke up and the fire was past them and they didn't wake up for it because it was nighttime. So the best thing I can say is, when we do an evacuation, we look at time once again, and this is where we put our law enforcement component into play to help orchestrate and manage based upon the intelligence we have and the unified approach that we have for giving direction to evacuations. So is there going to be people that have disabilities? And those are those family dynamics on being ready. What is your internal family plan based upon your family's ability to have mobility? So those have to be looked at ahead of time. Those really do. But we do everything we can to get law enforcement units in to help with the direction or give direction on evacuation. And we do everything we can to put our fire resources in the worst possible conditions to have the best outcome for that life safety component. Where we do those door knocks, we do the searches around the home for stuff when we're up in there. And then one thing that we don't have is the same amount of time that we give our residents to evacuate, because when we're giving them time to evacuate, this is the time we're taking to canvass the area, if you will, to do a search to make sure that we have that life safety component that we can maintain. I know it's long-winded on that, but there's a lot to it. Really a lot to it, Mike.
Yes, thank you so much. I think that we're just real quick. There's a lot of information to share, and I know that there's a lot of people that want to make sure that they have the correct information. Can you see this slide, everybody, with the resources? Are you still seeing that or not? No? Here, let me do it this way. Sorry.
I think you have to reshare, Mike.
Right on, right on. Just give me a second. Hold on. And then I'll be able to do this. Sorry, everybody. I don't know why I am not finding this. So why am I not seeing this? Can we see this? This? Got it? Okay. Okay. So yes, I know one of the last questions that we had was they can't find where to sign up for an assessment, but you can see the Resource Conservation District here with their website. You can navigate to that. And then I believe that's probably best word. Clark, is that the best place to go?
Yeah, for it, it's not the best interface, but once you get into, I'd go first to wildfire home evaluations because none of the other ones come into play until you do that.
Okay.
You have to be in our community of people who have learned about their home and their landscape with an evaluator that's trained.
All right. So just
Start
third
there.
third one from the bottom.
Yeah. If you're totally DIY, go to defensiblespace.org and spend a weekend with it because there's a lot there. And by the way, Georgia asked about papers. There's an appendix on that website as well, which references a lot of different materials, published material related to the production of that website that went into it.
Very good. Thank you, Clark. Okay, so again, we will have these posted, everything, all this information will be readily available for everybody. It's about 7:45, and I just want to thank everybody for the call. Assemblymember Irwin, thank you very much. And Clark, thank you for your time. And Assistant Fire Chief Smith, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate this. And for everybody out there, Senator Stern's office and everybody that helped put this together, we appreciate you very much. And just as a reminder, if you also, another good resource for you would be some of those local fire councils, fire safe councils. I think there's several of them. I know Calabasas has one, but there's probably some others to get involved with if you want to. So there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of resources, and more importantly than anything, all of us are here to help all of you make sure that you feel safe and to make sure that you're prepared for, God forbid, the next wildfire that may come through. But we're here, we're all resources, we care, and we want to make sure that you're safe. So everybody, thanks for your time and spending this with us tonight. And with that, I hope to see you all later, and be safe and have a great rest of your evening.